Hello, everybody. This is Gary. Today is Tuesday, November 2nd, 2021. It's 6:27 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the United States in Rochester, New York. And this is my coping with schizophrenia blog entry for today. Um, it's been a rough past few days. A lot has gone on. I went to the hospital twice last week. On Thursday, I went in because I was having chest pains, and I thought there was maybe something wrong with my heart. They did an evaluation. They did an EKG on my heart, and they did some blood tests, and they took a chest X-ray, and there's nothing wrong with my heart or lungs. It was just a panic attack. And then on Saturday morning, I ended up in the psychiatric emergency room because I was hallucinating. My paranoia was getting really bad. Um, I was also stressed out about the fact that my apartment is filled with cockroaches, and I can't stand cockroaches. I was having really bad panic attacks. Every time I saw a roach, I was spraying pesticides everywhere, which is actually a dangerous thing to do. Um, it's a violation of my lease for me to use spray pesticides, and the actual exterminator came in today and laid out bait poison for the cockroaches, so the problem should be reducing itself over the next few days. Um, the cockroaches was really a big stressor because I really, really hate cockroaches, and I was panicking and even became psychotic about the roaches. I wasn't hallucinating the roaches. I don't generally have visual hallucinations about anything. The roaches were certainly real enough. The exterminator came today. He moved my refrigerator out of its normal position and said I had a lot of baby cockroaches under the refrigerator. So the cockroaches were definitely real. But my thinking went beyond just phobia and panic and the paranoia and psychotic thinking about the roaches, thinking that I had to kill all the roaches, and I was spraying pesticides everywhere. I went through like 3 cans of cockroach spray, which is which in a studio apartment is extremely dangerous. I was inhaling a lot of the fumes from the pesticides over like 3 or 4 days. I'm lucky I didn't get sick. I'm lucky that I didn't poison myself. Or if I did poison myself, it wasn't enough to make me sick. Um, Pesticides are very dangerous, and they actually shouldn't be used by most people. What the exterminator used today was bait poison. It's sort of like a caulking gun where he squeezed out bait into the cracks and crevices of the countertops and cupboards in my kitchen and under the refrigerator. Um, and they told me not to use pesticides again because it violates my lease and also because it's dangerous, and it really doesn't help kill the cockroaches. It just drives them out of their hiding places. It doesn't really do much to kill them. Um, I'll probably be seeing cockroaches for the next several days. It takes a while for the bait poison to attract most of the roaches that the exterminator laid out. Um, so hopefully that problem has been solved, and I'll see a reduction in the number of roaches I see as the days pass by. The exterminator told me that the baby roaches don't have the mouths developed enough to eat the bait that he laid out. So I'll still be seeing baby roaches a while. And the adult roaches should be taking the bait sooner and dying quicker. Um, if I see roaches, not to spray the roaches directly with any pesticides, and don't use any pesticides at all. Aside from the fact that they're dangerous, they don't really work. But anyways, what happened aside from all the roaches was I went last Thursday to the hospital because I was having chest pains and I thought I was having difficulty breathing. So I took an ambulance to Star Memorial Hospital in Rochester, New York, at the University of Rochester. They gave me an EKG in my heart, which is just like taking a picture of the heart. They did a lung x ray and they did some blood tests to make sure that I wasn't having difficulty breathing and that I wasn't having a heart attack. It turns out I was not having a heart attack. There's nothing wrong with my lungs, and my x rays were clear. Um, my blood tests for my heart came back normal. The blood tests were for enzymes that show up in the blood during a heart attack. There were no enzymes in the blood test showing a heart attack. But I still didn't feel very good. I was spraying cockroach spray everywhere. I was hallucinating really bad. I didn't get any sleep Friday night to Saturday morning. So I called 911 again. And this time I went to the psychiatric emergency room. I was out of Klonopin. And I wasn't able to pick up the prescription until Sunday. I had my Zyprexa, and of course my Seroquel, which I took the previous night the way I'm supposed to. I have been taking all my meds the way I've been supposed to be taking my meds. But sometimes even that's not enough. So I went to the psychiatric emergency room on Saturday. Luckily, it wasn't that crowded this time. The last time I went to the psychiatric emergency room, I spent 26 hours waiting to see a psychiatrist. And it's a locked facility. You don't leave until you see a psychiatrist. But on Saturday morning, I was only there for about an hour. When the psychiatrist came out and saw me, they prescribed some Klonopin and some Zyprexa. I fell asleep for a few hours in a chair that pulls out like a bed in the emergency room. I slept for a few hours, got up, and told the psychiatrist that I was feeling better. My hallucinations were less severe. My anxiety was less severe. My paranoia was less severe. And they let me go home Saturday afternoon. I was only there for about 4 or 5 hours, which wasn't as bad as the last time. The last time it was chaotic. It was like 45 people in this basement for 20 people. This is going back about 4 weeks. And I was in the emergency room for 26 hours waiting to see a psychiatrist. Then they gave me, at that time, they gave me 2 Ativan, 2 Klonopins, 1 Zyprexa, 100 milligrams of Seroquel, and some Zofran because I was vomiting from the anxiety. And it was really a bad trip at the psychiatric emergency room about 4 weeks ago. But this Saturday wasn't that bad. They released me. After a few hours, they called me a taxi and sent me home. Sunday was pretty rough. I was still dealing with the roaches. I was still using the roach spray. On Monday morning, the first thing I did was call the rental office here where the landlord is in my apartments. They're right downstairs. They're not open on the weekends. So I had to wait till Monday morning to call them about the cockroaches. And they sent an exterminator today. So they did it pretty quickly, within 24 hours. The exterminator came in and laid down some bait poison for the roaches. So that problem hopefully is solved. I want to thank somebody who's been helping me through this over the past few days. I never met him in person. I'm not even sure where he lives. I never actually asked him. His name is Raphael. I won't say his last name, but he's been helping me out a lot on Twitter, giving me advice, get me through some stressful times over the past 4 or 5 days. We've been messaging each other back and forth on Twitter. He's been very helpful. It's always nice to know that you're not alone when you're going through stressful times. And I just wanted to give him a shout out. My anxiety levels are pretty intense right now. They're not as bad as they were 4 or 5 days ago. It's almost 7 p.m. I'll probably take my night meds around 8 or 9 p.m., do some meditation, which I do every day. I hadn't done meditation for like 8 or 9 months, and I just started it up again. Um, some of the people on YouTube that I like to meditate to their videos is Michael Seeley. It's spelled Sealey. I think that's the way it's spelled, but he's a YouTuber that puts out meditation videos, and also Jason Stevenson. He puts out some good videos. There's another channel called Meditation Vacation. And no, they're not paying me to say their YouTube channels. They don't even know who I am. I'm just pointing out that I use their YouTube channels for meditation. Um, their voices are very relaxing. Sometimes their videos are as short as 15 minutes. Or if you want a longer video, you can get a video that's an hour long meditation or 2 hours long. In the case of Michael Seeley and Meditation Vacation. Of course, meditation doesn't treat psychosis. I'm not saying that it does. Obviously, I meditate under the guidance of my therapist, who I did see today, by the way. I saw my crisis therapist today. We went over everything that's happened over the past 4 or 5 days. We talked about coping strategies, coping plans, which includes meditation, which includes just distracting myself by, like, for example, taking my bike outside and riding it, going for a walk. And if I feel really bad, instead of going to the emergency room, I could always go to the mental health crisis center that they have here in Rochester. It's not a psychiatric emergency room, but it is a place you can go when you're having a mental health crisis. And as long as you're not dangerously violent or suicidal, you can go and talk to them in person, and they'll talk to you and help evaluate you. It's not a place where they decide whether or not you should go in the hospital or not. They're there just to talk to people, and that might be a better alternative than going to the psychiatric emergency room. Although I do believe on Saturday it was necessary to go to the psychiatric emergency room. There was two things that I had to do. I had to get my hallucinations and psychosis under control. I was feeling suicidal. I was hearing the voices telling me to kill myself. So I thought that was dangerous. And I don't think going to the crisis center would have helped. So I went to the emergency room. I tried to use my best judgment as I can in the moment. My judgment was impaired, and that's another reason I decided to err on the side of caution and go to the emergency room instead of the crisis center. But if I'm generally just having panic attacks and feeling depressed and generally agitated, the crisis center will be a good place for me to go to. There's also a mobile crisis team that can come to my apartment if they're available. Obviously, there's a lot of people in crisis in any given city, and whether or not the crisis team can actually come see me at my apartment is sort of hit and miss. It depends on how busy they are. They are actually just right around the corner from me, so they could get here pretty quick without the necessity of having the police or an ambulance come. Now, if the crisis team gets here and they evaluate me and they think that I do need to go to the hospital, that's always a possibility. But sometimes calling the crisis team first may be just enough to avoid hospitalization or even the need to go to the hospital. The only reason I went to the hospital on Saturday, aside from my psychotic thinking, was that I had been spraying pesticides all over my apartment and inhaling that shit into my lungs, and I wasn't sure if I had poisoned myself physically. So I had to get evaluated to make sure that I wasn't getting sick from the pesticides as well as to make sure that my psychosis was under control and to bring my panic attacks under control and to bring my hallucinations under control. Um, so going to the hospital was kind of necessary on Saturday, both for psychiatric reasons as well as physical reasons. Um, uh, Today's generally been a good day. I got out of the house, saw my therapist, did some food shopping. Tomorrow I have to go pick up my Zyprexa prescription. Tonight I'll be just taking my regular meds. Um, my therapist told me to try to not take as much Klonopin as I have been taking because I've been taking it twice a day. And actually, the psychiatrist told me I'm not supposed to take it twice a day. Every day, I'm only supposed to take it twice a day in emergency situations. Klonopin is like Valium, Ativan, Librium, Xanax. They're all benzodiazepine drugs and they're all addictive. So you have to be careful with a drug like Klonopin. Um, you can go through physical withdrawals if you take too much of it and then you abruptly stop taking it. So if you take a drug like that, I'm not telling you to stop taking it. You should never stop any medications without your doctor knowing about it. And I'm not telling you to take it. You shouldn't take anything unless your doctor tells you to take it. I'm just relaying that for me, I was taking more Klonopin than I was supposed to. And the psychiatrist told me not to take more than I'm supposed to. Um, my psychiatrist, up until this point, my regular psychiatrist, was on vacation. And the psychiatrist that I talked to was a person that I never met before. And he was the one who told me not to take the Klonopin twice a day. I was taking half a milligram twice a day when I'm only supposed to take half a milligram twice a day in emergencies. And I was taking it half a milligram twice a day every day. And I'm supposed to take actually 21 pills over a 14-day period, not 20 pills over a 10-day period. And I tried to take even less than that if possible. So benzodiazepine drugs don't treat psychosis. They don't treat the hallucinations. They don't treat the paranoia and the delusions. But they do treat, at least temporarily, anxiety and panic attacks. Um, I did wake up in the middle of the night last night around 2:30. I saw some cockroaches. I got nervous. So I took a Klonopin in the middle of the night, half a milligram, and I meditated for about an hour and a half listening to a video from Meditation Vacation on YouTube. I fell asleep around 4 o'clock, woke up around 7, and so I got some sleep last night. Hopefully I'll get some sleep tonight as well. Hopefully without the need for Klonopin. I actually take quite a bit of Seroquel at night. I take 600 milligrams of Seroquel. And it's a very sedating drug. And like I mentioned to my therapist, it doesn't always help me fall asleep, even though it's a very powerful antipsychotic drug that makes most people very, very drowsy very, very quickly. But sometimes I'm so agitated that the Seroquel just doesn't make me fall asleep. Or if I do fall asleep, I wake up a few hours later and I'm up for the rest of the night. So for a lot of people with schizophrenia, the worst thing that can happen is insomnia. That just makes hallucinations worse. It makes paranoia worse. It makes delusions worse. It just makes anxiety worse. It just generally makes everything worse. Even a person who's not mentally ill, if they go too long without sleep, say 3, 4, 5, 6 days, they'll start hallucinating. So if you're already a person who hallucinates by seeing or hearing things, not sleeping only makes that worse. So one of the worst things that can happen to a person with schizoaffective disorder or schizophrenia is insomnia. That just makes things really, really bad. Um, but generally, I'm doing okay today. I'm going to try to start exercising more by riding my bike. I won't ride my bike once it starts snowing. I live in Rochester, New York, and it's November, so it's going to start snowing soon, and I don't ride my bike in the snow. It's just too damn cold, and I can't ride against the wind. I'm getting too old for that shit. I'm 56. I can ride my bike, but I'm not going to ride it in the middle of winter. I have an exercise bike in my apartment that I could use indoors for exercise. But exercise is another way of dealing with anxiety. Is another way of dealing with anxiety. Um, doesn't necessarily reduce hallucinations or paranoia, but it does reduce anxiety, and the anxiety can aggravate hallucinations and paranoia and delusions. At least it can for me. Um, but generally, I'm doing better now than I did yesterday, Sunday, Saturday, Friday, and last Thursday. It's just been an overall shitty few days. Um, I don't enjoy going to the psychiatric emergency room. When I go, I'm using the best judgment that I can at the time. I know my therapist would prefer that I go to the crisis center instead of the psychiatric emergency room, particularly because the psychiatric emergency room can just cause more stress. I mean, I was lucky on Saturday that the psychiatric emergency room wasn't too overcrowded. I saw a psychiatrist within an hour of getting there. It's kind of hit and miss. Sometimes the psychiatric emergency room, especially on the weekends, is way too overcrowded, and people wait for hours and hours before they see a psychiatrist and a social worker. You don't leave the psychiatric emergency room once you're there. Even if you're there voluntarily, once you're in, you're locked in, and you don't leave until you see the social worker and the psychiatrist. And then if they want you to let you go, they'll let you go. So it's kind of hit and miss on how long a person stays in the psychiatric emergency room. Now, of course, if they decide to admit you into the hospital, then you're not going anywhere. They'll try to find you a psychiatric inpatient bed, either at their own hospital, which in this case is Star Memorial Hospital in Rochester, New York. And if they have no beds, they'll try to look for another hospital, even if it's in another city. Newark, New York, I believe, has a psychiatric hospital. They've sent people there. They've sent people to St. Mary's Hospital in Rochester, New York. Sometimes the Rochester General Hospital. There's not a lot of hospitals in the Rochester area that have psychiatric beds. There's a couple other hospitals in Rochester, New York, but they don't have psychiatric wards. Um, there's a hospital in Brockport, New York, that does not have any psychiatric beds. There's Highland Hospital in Rochester, New York. They don't have a psychiatric unit, inpatient. Um, so the number of hospital beds are limited. And if you get admitted into the hospital, you may be waiting several days or a week before they find you an inpatient bed. And by the end of that time, they may just decide to discharge you anyways, because you may not need to be hospitalized anymore. After spending 3, 4, 5 days at the emergency room, you may not need to even be in the hospital anymore. They may just discharge you even if they admit you. So I'm going to go now. Again, thanks to Raphael for helping me out over the past few days. We've been messaging each other back and forth on Twitter. He's been a big help. And comment, like, share, subscribe. If you want to really help my channel grow, share this video on Twitter, Facebook, other social media. I don't copyright my videos, so you can use my videos for whatever reasons. Press the notification bell If you want to know when I put out new videos, and if you want me to do a video on a specific topic, let me know in the comments section. And that's all for now.